South Africans with that qualification. Why should we allow you? What is your experience? Should we believe you to come and learn here when there are so many youngsters who have just qualified from universities? Should we allow you to come and compete with them, or are you bringing some form of experience? Those are some of the things that we are going to consider. But as I'm saying, I'm just giving you snippets because this is still going to be gazetted. Now, the backlog which we are talking about, which is confusing, which we changes all the time. This backlog is mostly about dependent visas, spouses and relatives. Now we are agreeing, Hilary, we are agreeing that if I get my critical skills visa to come to South Africa, and yet my wife doesn't get any spousal visa, my children don't get study visas, etc., it might make it difficult for me to come because I'm being split from my family. We have accepted that, and we would like to correct them by saying next time, when you give you a critical skills visa, we must consider your whole family because you are attached to it. But otherwise, the backlog is on the dependency visa, and I'm going to give Yusuf some bit of time to explain why is it developing such a backlog. We've got a situation in South Africa where in our laws we are saying if you become a spouse of a South African, female or male, if you become a spouse, then you can apply for a spousal visa in South Africa. Unfortunately, we are reaching a situation where spouses are just created, where they don't exist. They are created where they don't exist. I'm repeating. There is something called a notarial contract, which is allowed by South African law, where you come with a partner and you go to a notary general. Some lawyers are notary generals, to write you a contract that you are staying together as partners, and you bring that to Home Affairs. They regard you as a spouse. The number of notarial contract is increasing day by day. But when we send immigration officers to visit such families, they never found any spouse. They don't find any, and yet we've got a document here that we must issue a spousal visa because there's a notarial contract. And what is alarming us, these notarial contracts are growing in leap and bounds. That's why you are finding this thing changes. This backlog is changing every day because the notarials are growing. And now you can imagine immigration officers having to visit that family in the morning to see if there's really a spouse there. They don't find a spouse. They go again in the afternoon. There's no spouse. They go again in the evening where all spouses are supposed to be home. After work, there's no spouse. And they repeat that for 6 months, there's no spouse. What are we supposed to do? So this is a conundrum and a problem that we are going to have to change. Unfortunately, it's in the law. And it's causing this backlog that grows in leaps and bounds. The backlogs about the critical skills, general work and business, it doesn't usually, we don't usually suffer that. But the reason that is people who have got critical skills who are complaining is because maybe it's their spouses. That one really, we shouldn't be giving them a tough time. Because yes, I've been given a letter of appointment by this company. I would like to come with my family. And then the family has to apply for relatives visa, spousal visa, dependency visa. So we want to put them together. Yusuf, I don't know, I think you are able to add something here on the issue of critical skills, general work, business, in terms of the backlog.
Thank you very much, Minister, DG and members of the media. The Minister is absolutely correct. Less than 10% of applications in both visas as well as permanent residence is in the categories of business, general work, as well as critical skills. So that's a small percentage of applications we receive in this regard. And those categories is also part of our annual performance plan. So it's prioritized. You would note that in our performance plan, the turnaround time for critical visa is also 4 weeks only. Apart from the 8 weeks for normal visas, we shortened that turnaround time. So we put a lot of focus, and we have a dedicated team dealing with these three categories, as indicated, because they are directly impacting on the growth in the economy, the creation of jobs, bringing business into South Africa. So that's where our focus are. So about almost 90%, if not more, of the applications in the backlog, as Minister has indicated, is in the relative category and the spousal category. There's a lot of abuse in this regard, and unfortunately what delays the processing of those applications is the existence of the marriage. That's very difficult to determine. So many times the spouses do not live together. It's difficult for our resources to go and do house visits, as Minister has indicated. And even the contact numbers in applications are not in existence. So that makes our task extremely difficult. And you could say that we could reject all of those, but then they become appeal cases, and we just move the backlog from applications to appeals, which really does not help. So it's an enormous task we have. The good thing that Minister, that we have now brought on board is for provinces also to assist with the backlog. As Minister indicated, one of my other tasks is in a province, so we are coordinating also extra resources from the provinces to focus on this backlog, so that the incoming work can be attended to by adjudicators, so that we can balance the backlog with incoming work and not create a new backlog. So it's a tough task we have. We're also looking at getting assistance for the verification of documents, because that's mostly where the challenge are. A bank, for example, if you want to verify a bank statement, the bank will tell you upright that they don't appoint staff to verify documents for Home Affairs. They have tight budgets as well, and also efficient in the allocation of the staff. So we wait a long time for banks to provide verification. And we cannot, and I must repeat, we cannot accept any document on face value and then finalize that because a bank statement in paper says there is money. We have to do a verification. This is just some of the documents must verify, and that's where the challenge is. And with backlog applications as well, for example, a spousal visa of 3 years ago that's in backlog now, you most likely find that to verify that marriage is even more difficult to trace the couples. So let me just say that on the statistics, Minister, unless DJ have it, but I think it's best if we have detailed statistics. And because we're sitting with the media, it's better if we by tomorrow provide that in absolute detail, the correct numbers with the percentages of approvals versus rejections. So I propose that we rather provide statistics tomorrow, Minister. But as Minister has indicated, it's a backlog that's coming down. It's a number that we have projectized. A team is working on that. The DJ has projectized the backlog. 2 separate teams, one dealing with incoming work and one focused on backlogs, including provincial officials being also brought on board to assist in this regard. Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you, Yusuf. Yes, Hilal, the summary of what he's saying is we don't usually develop a backlog on critical skills, general work and business. We don't usually do that. The DG is just telling me, is it critical skills, is this 30?
Yeah, it was 30 this morning.
That he had 30 this morning, as he has finalized them before coming here. Because I told you, if it's critical skills, you need only 2 things. Does this profession appear on the gazetted list? 1. 2, is there a letter of employment from an employer? That's all you need. That's why you could finish those 30 within a short space of time. But you may find that they go to the press, Hillary, and say there is a delay, because they are speaking about the spouse, not themselves. Themselves is not an issue. The spouse, maybe, and the children and all that. That's why we are developing the backlog. And I'm saying it's unfortunate that in the Act, they are separated. Spousal visa is section what? Section 11.6 or something like that. Yes, and some spouses, there is a section, I think it's 11.6 something, where it says a spousal visa with a right to work. Their spouses would say, I want to accompany my spouse, but I must be given a right to work in South Africa. And with this high rate of unemployment, we found it difficult to allow that. And of course, it becomes a backlog. And I am aware of many countries in the world where the person will tell you, I'm here accompanying my husband, but I'm not allowed to work. If it happens in South Africa, it gets a very ugly term and all that, and attacks and all that. But there are countries that are doing that to protect their job markets, the inhabitants of that country, not to have a lot of competition in as far as work is concerned. We have already given the spouse who is coming with critical skills, I mean the person who has applied for critical skill. Now we have got to give the wife, we have got to give another relative and all that. These are the things that are difficult, which we think we are going to change in the Act. But the summary is the backlog that you are talking about is about spouses, relatives, and dependents visas, not about the person who wants the critical skills visa themselves or the business visa. Because the department, the DTI, usually lodge a complaint. If somebody wants to establish a business here, firstly they apply to DTI and they've got their list. When we delay to give them visas, DTI complains. They write us a letter and send us a list and say these people want to establish businesses, you are delaying. So it's not easy to develop backlogs in those areas. The verification of qualifications, whether it's done by the department or the employer, it will be done by the employer if it's the trusted employer. If it's in the trusted employer scheme, they must verify and tell us that we have verified is true. But as I said, the trusted employer scheme is given on a big proviso. If we do a random check and found that we have misrepresented the facts, we have told us that this qualification is equivalent to this and that, and you found that is not true, we're not going to accept that. When you say, no, I made a mistake, you have got to be sure, because we take it at your word. That's why it's called trusted employer. You are a trusted human beings, and we are giving you this visa based on the trust between you and them. So if you are not sure, you better not present it and say it's trusted. But for those who are not trusted employers, yes, we still have to verify. And the verification is done with SAQA, as you know. It takes a long time because it's outside the department. We write to SAQA and say, can you verify this qualification for us? It takes a long time. I happen to know it because even in government, sometimes you take a very long time to hire a DD, a DDG, a chief director. It can be taken to cabinet for DG and DDG for the cabinet to approve, because we have got no proof of qualification from SAQA. Sometimes we wait for 6 weeks, even 8 weeks waiting for SAQA. And it's one of the problems that Home Affairs is faced with other employers. But as I'm saying, if you are a trusted employer, if you have to wait, it will be on your own volition. It means you did not acquire these documents quick enough, and that's why you are waiting. You can no longer blame us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. DG, I believe you want to make some additions on the trusted employer.
Thank you, Thabo. Good afternoon, Minister. Good afternoon, members of the media. So that unit that the Minister was referring to that deals with critical skills, it's the corporate accounts unit, Hillary, and they process all the applications. But also to say, Minister, with regards to the trusted employer scheme, it's a one-stop shop. So you have got the DTI as part of that team, you have got the Department of Labor as part of that team, and you have got the Department of Home Affairs. So it stops you from going to the DTI to lodge an application. It stops you from going to the DEL to lodge an application. So they assemble at the Department of Home Affairs and process, which is why we're able to finalize 109 applications within a very short space of time. And of course, out of the 109, 72 of those companies were confirmed as part of the trusted employer scheme. Now, what do they do on a daily basis? They also check with our missions all over the world to check for applications that have been lodged. I just thought I must add that for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, DG. Batabile, I believe we have questions on the WhatsApp platform, but first, let's take a question from the brother just behind you.
Turkmen Terzi representing Turkish Media. And Minister,
Sorry? Representing what?
Turkmen Terzi
Oh,
representing
Turkish media.
Turkish Media, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You mentioned about big companies. President Dr Motsoaledi mentioned last April about in investment conference. Do you have any plan for SMMEs, charity organization, NGOs? You have very historical, very established. They are the really, for instance, SMMEs. They are very critical for job creation. Sometimes more than big companies. They create job and they train your young entrepreneurs. And they run education institutions and they go all very deep township areas and they are, educating and helping your people most of the time. Do you have any plan for these categories? Thank you.
What about them? What about SMMEs, the Turkmen? What do you want to know about them?
Yeah, in most of countries, people just go with their few $100,000 and they start companies and they are really critical people. For instance, in construction, you mentioned about construction, you need more critical skills in workers in construction sector than investment in construction. You have already many multinational companies investing. Historically, you have already here, but you have very short number of workers in construction sector, for instance. Thank you.
Thank you. Batabile?
Thank you. I have 3 questions here from Elena Caputo, representing European Broadcasting Union and ANSA Italian Wire Agency. First question is, there are many people who requested critical skills visa in embassies in the Europe and simply do not get a response, and they are left waiting without a positive nor negative response. The second question from Elena is, can you please clarify if a critical skills visa can only be requested or obtained by an approved trusted employer? Last question from Elena is, can an individual apply with their skills, qualifications, and letter of appointment from a non-trusted employer?
Thank you. I saw a hand that side, brother.
So I would like to know what is the backlog regarding visitors visa, because we have a colleague who've been waiting for 2 years to get a visa, and they are concerned that there are visa applications that have been destroyed or lost. So why is the backlog so important for visitors visa?
Ma'am?
Try this. Okay. Yeah, Minister, thank you so much for clarifying and repeatedly saying that the VFS acts as an extension of your visa application. Really appreciate hearing that, although we were not specifically talking about this today. I would just want to also maybe suggest that in this case, if you clearly say that VFS receipt acts as an extension of the visa application, this could be put in writing and circulated again, because I think that the direction, which was meant for internal use, as you've explained, unfortunately it has found its way to the public. Now it's there in writing and everybody is a bit confused about the 30th November 2023 date you specifically state there. So if we would have in writing that everybody can travel in and out whose visa application is pending with their VFS receipt regardless of when they applied for visa renewal, I think that would do away with a lot of confusion here. And yeah, would that be possible? Thank you.
Okay. one last question on the WhatsApp platform, and then we'll let the minister respond.
Yes, I have another question from Elena. Can Minister clarify about people asking for critical skills visa from embassies and produce all the documents, including SACA? They are usually not given a receipt and not given an answer. Thank you.
Just come again.
Just repeat the question.
Can Minister please clarify about people asking for critical skills visa from embassies and not produce all documents, including SACA? They are usually not given a receipt and not given an answer.
Yeah, can you answer?
Okay. Did you?
Yeah,
Maybe,
I want the
yeah,
DG
let's
to
start
answer
with
this
the
one
last
and
question.
the last one about visitors visa. Then I'll come with the rest. This one of people asking about critical skills visa. Embassies, yes.
No, thanks, Elena. Thanks, Tabo. It's a bit strange because it's a service that you pay for, and therefore you do get a receipt at our missions. Home Affairs only has a presence in about 38 of those missions. The rest are missions that are run by the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, DERCO. So in those missions, we utilize officials from DERCO, and it's a transaction that requires you to have a receipt. I'll be interested to see if you can get details of this person who did not get a receipt but paid for a service from whatever mission. Unfortunately, it was not clear which mission it is. And on an annual basis, we do collect money, and it's repatriated by DERCO back to the National Revenue Fund. And then it's money that we sometimes utilize for Home Affairs activities known as self-financing. I think on visitors' visas, I'm not sure whether you're looking for specific numbers in terms of the backlog, which is exactly what Yusuf was saying, that what we can do as we share with Hillary, we can certainly share with you details around that. But the key message that Yusuf was saying is that we now have a project team that's working to clear those backlogs, capacitated internally by our own officials. We've had an offer from also the private sector that want to come and assist, and we're working on the modalities with regards to that. Thanks, Tab.
Yeah, thank you very much. Techman, the trusted employer is only given to big companies, as we have said, that invest 100 million or more, that employs more than 100 people, 60% of whom are South Africans, that invest in areas that the South Africa needs most, as in energy, etc. Now, I don't know why we must confuse it with small companies as if they are not wanted in South Africa. There are no small companies that went to the President Investment Summit and pledge. It's usually big companies. Now, the small ones are dealt with in different ways. And in this case, I'll give to Yusuf again. Yusuf, are you ready to speak about the startup visa? Because small companies may fall within that category. Yes. But before he responds, any company that is not on a trusted employer scheme, it doesn't mean it falls off. It simply means it uses other means rather other than the trusted employer. So, Yusuf, maybe you can explain that.
No, thank you very much, Minister. Yes, Minister is absolutely correct. The Trusted Employer Scheme, this was the first round. It's a pilot. It's a new introduction of a worldwide phenomenon that's taking place to have relationships with your employers. This is the first round. We're looking at taking another cohort from May onwards. So if you meet the criteria, as the Minister has clearly outlined, of course you can apply. But that's not the end of it all. Those who do not meet the criteria, the Minister spoke, DG spoke about the corporate accounts unit. There's a unit that deals with the trusted employer companies and a unit that deals with other companies. So that's also an option for any SMMEs, NGOs to register with that company. although they're not going to have the same privileges that we're going to give as we have with Trusted Employer Scheme, because there we sign a contract with Trusted Employers, a MOU, but they will still have access to a unit called corporate accounts. But then, as Minister also indicated, there was a new visa category that the presidency through Vulundlela recommended. It's called a startup visa. Now, a startup visa, we then looked at that and we found that we could fit a startup visa in the current business visas that's there. The business visa, in terms of regulation 14.1, speaks about a person who intends to establish a business in South Africa, as similar to a startup, can apply then, can apply through DTIC, who works closely with us. And then there's also the element of an existing business can also apply for a business visa if you meet the criteria. So there's also possibilities there. But the important one is that startup visa that makes provision for any person who intends to establish or want to invest in a business can then apply under the regulation 14.1 of the Immigration Act. That is there. It's part of the Vulundlela report, and it gives that opportunity for any business, small business, who falls out of the Trusted Employer Scheme category, can then slot into that category, or go to our large account unit and register there as an employer, where we'll also have a team that looks at those applications. So there are provisions. They are not out of it. There are provisions in different categories. And with the second round that the intake that we will be doing from May onwards on the Trusted Employer Scheme, we then give opportunity, because there's been a lot of interest, more interest from companies to join the Trusted Employer Scheme program. We'll open it up again to take in a second cohort. Thank you, Minister.
Yeah, look, I don't want you to undermine the corporate account unit, because when it was opened was that those in the corporate world must not come and queue with others, specifically because they establish business, they run the economy, they hire people, etc. So in the corporate account unit, as the DG said, you find people from labor, you find people from DTI, you find people from Home Affairs under one roof, so that you don't have to go all over. So the fact that you are not yet a trusted employer does not mean you are going to suffer, because the corporate account unit will still deal with you, and that obviously will deal with SMMEs. But as Yusuf is saying, we are not going to stop there. We are going to continue with the work. The critical skills, this question from the European Broadcasting Unit, the critical skills many people are waiting. Colleagues, look, in the department, I have really repeated many times to my officials, I don't like the use of words like many, a lot, big, small, etc. I want to be specific. And I've asked these many companies, the only way to know that indeed we have delayed to give somebody a critical skills visa is for them to provide us the name, so that we see, because I'm standing here in front of you and telling that a critical skill, once you appear on the Gazette and you give us a letter of employment from your employer, we issue it immediately. There's no reason that we should delay. So if we say we have delayed for somebody, please give us the name. But what has been happening is this, and I'm repeating it. There are lots of people who claim this, that many people are waiting. And you say, please give us the list immediately. And the list is not there. Yusuf, I'm sure you can attest to that. Some of the complaints were lodged by BISA and BUSA, Business Unit South Africa, and say, no, so many companies want to come to invest in South Africa. They can't come because you refuse them critical skills list. We say, okay, give us the list. And the answer come and say, no, they can only give the list. Like last year, we were told in November about this. When we demanded the list, they say it can only be provided the following year. Surely, if you go to the media and complain that somebody doesn't get the critical skill list, that person must be ready-made there. Give us the name so that we see. They say no. We had a very big case here, which appeared in quite a number of print media and electronic media about a gentleman. Where was that gentleman from, Yusuf? Yeah, from Germany. I'm repeating it because it pained me, where it was reported all over how inefficient we are and all that, only to find that the gentleman did not even apply. In the first place, there was no application, but it was already all over the media that we are delaying critical skills. I'm mentioning it because it was there and recorded, and we tried to correct it. The gentleman was hired by AECI, which is a chemical company in mining, and he said, I'm coming to South Africa, here is my letter of appointment. When we checked, he did not apply for critical skill. He has applied for a visitor's visa, which was given immediately, and then it expired, then he made noise. But after applying for critical skills, we gave it. After our name has already been dragged in the mud, we gave it immediately. And we gave it within 8 days, if I'm not mistaken. Only after applying. We took 8 days only to give him that critical skills. But by that time, our name was irreversibly damaged in the media that we don't want the economy to run and all that. Then immediately after that gentleman came with these others from, where were they from? Italian chamber, if I'm not mistaken, and all that. And we say, give us the list. No, we'll give it in February. But it's November and you are already complaining. Why wait for February to give us the list? Give it now. Then thereafter in February we demanded. They say, Sia, you were the one who was communicating with this company, didn't you?
Yes, I'm the one who was communicating with them.
Yes, what happened? Come here. Sia is the director of communication. He must come here and explain to you, because these are some of the things that pains us. Because when you see somebody something in the press, I tell them to solve it immediately. Just come and explain what happened.
Thank you very much, Minister, DG, and colleagues, members of the media. We did have an instance where the chambers of business in Europe had complained that we were not processing their applications. We sent a request for them to give us an update on their island, on the exact
to give a list
on the list of the exact people who were not who didn't have the permits that they had applied for. We did not get that list in December. We also did not get it up until the third week of January this year. At the moment, we are in the process of clearing those applications. They are being handled by the unit that the DG referred to, that is the corporate accounts unit. Thank you very much.
The second question here on the line is whether critical skills are applied for only by a trusted employer. I think I've responded. Critical skills have got nothing to do with trusted employer. Critical skills is any of the skills that have been gazetted. And once you get an offer of employment and your profession appear on that, we give you. What is making people complain, I'll tell you what. Because Home Affairs made a mistake, I think it's in 2014, where when the critical skills has been gazetted and you are staying somewhere in another country and you receive the gazette, you see the profession that you are in on that, you just rush to South Africa. It can't happen that way. We have stopped that. We said, you must be offered employment first. In other words, you must see that there is indeed a company that needs you to be sure that your skill is actually critical. If there's no company that will be needing you, you might be a highly qualified person, then it means your skill is not critical. Because why are companies not offering you any job? You might be an engineer with a PhD. That's a very, very important skill. But if there's no company that gives you a job in South Africa, if there's none, then why should we allow you to come here? For what reason? Just because we have got a very, important qualification, a PhD or what, there must be a company that needs you. And we facilitate your entry into South Africa by giving you that skill. So critical skills is not only by trusted employers. Anybody can, but the trusted employers can also apply for it, because all the information that is needed, they will be able to acquire it on their own. Can a person apply from a non-trusted employer? Yes, I've already explained that. Any person can apply. It's not only trusted employers. The issue of statement of the website, ma'am, I mentioned this in Parliament. It's not just in the media. I mentioned in front of Parliament. It's recorded there. We took that and put it on the website. That explanation that this is what's happening. But we'll still look if there's any shortage. And then there was a press conference where we said, because the people who are affected, we don't know them, we got very few, we are making a call that any person who was affected by this, please come forward. We're still waiting. Please come forward. If you have been stopped at the borders and you have experienced a problem, please come forward. But we did, and we'll still look at what actually still needs to be published in that regard. There's a question here again from Elena. It says, people asking about critical skills work from embassies, isn't it? Can you correct me? Because I wrote embassies here. Oh, that's the one DG has responded to. Yes, he has responded to it that yes, because we do work with embassies all over the world. They are the people who are the first port of call when people are applying for these visas. Otherwise, then I think what I've been having, I've responded. Thank you.
Thanks, Minister. Do we still have further questions? Hilary?
Thanks. Just two last questions from me. Minister, are you prepared to commit to a timeline for how soon you will gazette a revised version of these regulations? You say you are going to withdraw the existing ones tomorrow. When are you, and you're going to make some minor revisions, when do you think you will gazette the new version? So that's just one question. And another small question, on that list of criteria for the point system, there is a criterion saying something like the person must be able to adapt to living in South Africa, and I was just wondering, what does that mean? Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, let me start with the last one, Hilary. You are perfectly right. I was questioning it this morning. What actually it means is one of the areas that we are going to correct, because you may not. How do you give points on that? Meant, and Yusuf was trying to explain. I said no. They are talking about people who will easily come to integrate better than others, like people who will have studied in the country, etc. But take it from me, it's number 6 on that list. We are going to change it when we re-gazette. It was wrong. Please forgive us for that. It will definitely change. We accept your concern in that regard. When will we gazette? I think we'll do it next week. Today is Tuesday. Tomorrow we gazette the withdrawal officially. I think by next week we'll be ready. We really don't want to waste time, because we are not changing the gist of this issue. We are just changing the process and follow up a process as the law will say, because somewhere corners were cut. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Minister. Colleagues, just one clarification. For purposes of this media briefing, Yusuf Simmons should be referred to as the project lead in the implementation of the recommendations of the Vulindlela for the Department of Home Affairs. So I thought I should clarify that. This brings us to the end of the media briefing. If there are requests for one-on-one engagement, the Minister is here, the DG is here. Yeah, we are available. Thank you. Is this yours? You sure? Yeah. Take people's phones. You'll be arrested.
Okay.